Welcome to another interview and segment of Israel Tech. I'm here with Gideon Rotem, the CEO and founder of Deeyook. Thank you for joining us.
Well, pleasure to be here.
So first thing I want to say is that I came in here at about 8:30, and what I admire is that everyone's working. There's people here at 8:30 in the morning, and we've done many of these interviews, and usually we show up like 9:15. I got here earlier, and half the office is working. Oh, they'll be in late. Oh, it's their off day. They don't, whatever. So maybe like one of the first things, obviously, first I want you to introduce yourself, what Deeyook does, but definitely want to go into kind of the culture and how is that related into the technology. So maybe first you can tell us about Deeyook, and I love the name, and you can tell us about it. And I'd love to hear more about what's unique here about your work, your workspace.
Okay, so Deeyook, if there's Hebrew speakers out there, they already know what we're about. Deeyook is the Hebrew word for precision, which you understand, and we're trying really to say, what are we doing? What is our emphasis of what we're doing? It's providing a location solution that's about precision, ubiquity, and scalability, and Deeyook really distills that precision element. Now, Deeyook is founded by myself and Eran Shpak in 2019, and since then we've been taking on people, etc. We're experienced entrepreneurs, as you can see from my well-tailored coiffure here.
Does this mean I'm inexperienced then? Because
well, or you're very well kept. That's what I can say, right? Either very well kept or inexperienced.
So either you're experienced or not well kept.
Both options, but that's why I said I'm experienced. Okay, so we're 24 years doing this. And one of the things I think to tie it to your question is 24 years doing this is that we have a varied workforce in ages. Okay, so it goes all the way from, we've had people 18 years old and we've had people 67 years old. And it covers those 50 years. And when you have 50 years and it's not a group of everybody's 26, people tend to work what's comfortable to them, and therefore you have a large piece of the company here at 8 a.m. and then you have a different piece here at 7:30 p.m. So you have a full working day. Not everybody here is 14 hours a day,
right?
Or you try not to do that continuously, because a startup is a marathon. A startup is not a sprint. But that's how you get people here at 8 a.m.
Actually, I want to talk about that, marathon versus sprint, because one of the challenges that a lot of startups are having, especially now, the last year and a half with the economy or whatnot, is how are they going to manage their burn rate not knowing when the next round of funding comes in? So in a sense, there is a sense of sprint. We got to demonstrate revenue, demonstrate value as fast as we can, so we can try to get more money in order to last longer and have more opportunity to grow and scale and get to a point where we're cash flow positive and profitable. So how do you balance a burn rate versus, like, to not have to go give them more equity or try to raise more money, and obviously you're trying to, as fast as possible, bring cash in the door to cover your expenses and to be able to expand. How do you work that out?
Okay, so the important word in your question there was balance. And I see the whole startup as a balancing act. And the balancing act is always run as fast as you can, considering the resources you have. And remember that it's a marathon. Okay, I'll go back to that marathon. This is 24 years. This is our fourth company together. We've learned that it's not a sprint. And even if you think it's a sprint, there's always the next sprint and the next sprint and the next sprint. When you get that perspective that it's a combination of multiple sprints, you understand it's a marathon. So in our case this year, what we really did, we're now 30 people in the company. If you go back to my investor presentations 18 months ago, I would have said that we would be 40 or 50 people in the company today. So about 15 months ago, we said, wait, this is the economy. This is what we see in terms of our ability to raise funds. This is the achievables. What do we really need to do in order to get our investors to put in more money, other investors to put in more money? And we changed basically the investment pattern to be 30 people today, but head over the water, smiling, working, and not in distress. Goes back. Marathon, plan your next 30 kilometers down the road, because there's a long road down there.
Do you ever worry that 30 kilometers is enough planning?
Yeah. I fully agree. And you can't see everything. And unlike a marathon where it's 42 kilometers and 197 meters, here you don't know how long your marathon is.
Why people are sprinting.
Which makes it, but it's dangerous to sprint full force.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of things that I think The balancing act comes from senior management and how it perceived the situation. And you never know till the end if you were right or wrong. It's, but that's the beauty of the beauty of the beast.
So you're a veteran in the tech industry. So if there were, let's say, a younger you or a younger founder coming up, what would you tell him or her? Similar, maybe they raised a few $1,000,000, and now they have that burn rate, and there's that marathon versus sprint, and in a tougher economy, let's say, what advice would you give to them, given that they don't have the experience that, let's say, you have doing this for many years?
Don't be afraid to make hard decisions. Okay, hard decisions means cutting burn rate. Hard decisions mean go slow or go fast, as long as you understand what you're doing. So understand the decision you're making. And on the extreme of that advice, I would say there's always the next company.
Well, there you go. All right, awesome.
So it's not life and death. Yes, it might sound, there's a very famous saying, I think it's an American saying, and you'll need to find who I'm quoting here, but it's not life and death, it's something much more important. It's money. So people get confused by that. So I will reiterate it the other way around. Investors don't listen. It's not life and death.
Right. You got the marathon, you got the sprint, you're trying to balance it out. But then you have a team that doesn't understand your whole vision and your whole drive. Now, you do have a unique team here. As I was saying when we opened up, that I was impressed by how many people are actually in here at their desks working well before 9 a.m. That's awesome. What do you do? What is it unique about your team or in general that you see kind of in the industry in order to get people to trust you when it's time to sprint, when it's time to marathon, and to know that even though that you may not, you have a burn rate and you see a vision for the company, so they know that their career is at least secure, that they don't need to go jump ship, you don't lose talent. How do you balance all that within your workspace? Because it's clearly they're dedicated.
Okay, so I don't think the single employee has the ability to see what the company is going and what they're doing, what the company is doing as a whole. So I think that the crucial piece here, especially in small companies, and it's a different, I've had a company that was 200 employees, and I like the 0 to 50 better in terms of what I like the personal touch. It's getting every one of the employees and every one of the team members on board, meaning they have to believe what they're doing is important to the general mission, okay? And to understand that it makes sense what they're doing. Now, when everybody on board understands that what they're doing makes sense and what their plan makes sense, they can, okay, if my plan makes sense, I guess his plan makes sense and her plan makes sense, I guess everybody's plan makes sense, because you can't have every employee as a review committee of what's happening in the company. Please, Mr. CEO, share with us your vision and let us critique it. Well, you don't really have the tools to do that. That's not your job. You're supposed to write an algorithm, to write a software, to do a physical experiment, to deploy it at a customer site, and you have to understand what you're doing and see what you're doing makes sense. And when all those pieces together make sense, the company makes sense.
How do you get people to buy into the vision? Because I wonder, when I see people come to apply, and I'm thinking I'm an employer myself, and I'm like, you're applying by me and you're applying by other places that do different technology and different work. So it's like, are you vision agnostic, leadership agnostic in a sense? How do you attract the kind of talent that are looking for vision? Or is it really everyone's looking for it, you just need to provide the right vision to the right person? Or do you do it as a group? How do you build that vision so people feel that they're getting tremendous value out of the work that they're doing, that they're getting meaning out of it? They know there's something greater and they're dedicated for the longer term.
We're what is called today a deep tech company. And I didn't necessarily say called today, because if you go back and, been doing this for 25 years, all startups were deep tech startups 25 years ago.
Right.
Today, only those that develop technology and develop the technology themselves and not use it are called deep tech. So as a deep tech company, we're really selling the challenge of the technology we're developing and the real world problem that it's solving. Now, specifically, Deeyook is solving the issue of indoor location. Okay, and indoor location, everybody's familiar with GPS. Everybody's familiar with what can be done with GPS. And when you think about it, 90% of human activity is indoors. So everything you know about GPS, about Waze and Google Maps and taking you places, etc., is about 10% of human activity. What about that other 90% of human activity? That's what Deeyook is about. How do you create a GPS-like environment? The ability to know where you are, to know where your assets are, to know where things are moving in this 90% of human activity. So selling that challenge and showing that we're developing a unique technology to solve that, that's how we sell at this stage of the company. By the way, I think 3 years from now, company's much bigger, deployed many places, the business becomes the essence, not the technology. You sell it differently. And in that respect, across the lifetime of a company, the vision changes and how you sell it to employees, stakeholders, investors, etc. changes.
So you got your team, you brought in the mission, and you're helping people, you're selling the vision of it's important that 90% of the time that people are getting around isn't proper GPS internally. So here's my question to you. Can you help me get out of IKEA easily? Because IKEA, I feel like I get in there and I can't get out. Is that the kind of solutions you're solving, or is it more not for the end consumer, more for B2B?
In principle, I can help you get out of IKEA.
Can you help my wife get out of IKEA?
And I can help your wife get out of IKEA. I'm not sure, how I can help you on the credit card side, but I'll physically get you out. But that's in principle, because the more interesting challenge, we believe, is the touchless tracking of everything that's in IKEA. So the customer for Deeyook is really IKEA, not the IKEA customer. It means so every pallet in IKEA can have a tag, or it can be marked. It's a connected asset or non-connected asset. So if it's a non-connected asset, that means any box in IKEA can have a Deeyook tag on it, and then you know exactly where it is. So by the way, when you're thinking navigating in IKEA, when you go to an IKEA port and say, okay, where is this in this table? You can get directly navigated to the specific product you're looking to. You don't have to, and all of us have done IKEA, so it's the aisle 17 number, whatever. No, forget that. Things get moved around,
you're
things
always,
get shifted
you're always,
around.
You're B2B.
You can know wherever every asset is.
Because I always obviously I was thinking about, when I think about your technology, I think about it as a consumer. Wow, I'd love to do that. Or I was at a Phillies game the other summer with my daughters, and we entered in the wrong gate, third base, and we had to go to the first base. And it would have been great if they just followed the GPS and up and down, and here's my seat. But of course, it's the mass logistics of what's going on in a stadium, or the logistics of IKEA, or logistics of a Walmart, or any of these other large stores, or I'm sure warehouses and things like that. What is the main points that you're solving? Because I can think about one where is inventory. Another thing is theft, how you want to make sure nothing leaves the door. Another thing is, is it ethical to track the physical locations of employees, especially if you, let's say, have a warehouse and you actually need to know where they are, or an assembly line, or let's say as a car manufacturer. So your technology, how do you see companies actually using it? If you can kind of work us into that, and where do you think, and are there certain places where you think they're not going to use it? Do you think there's any ethical challenges, at least with tracking people or things like that?
We'll start with the ethical challenge, maybe. As with all technology, the question is really, what do you do with it? In terms of privacy, there is always an issue with location. I will note that we are the most ethical location solution, because we do not take your private information and use it to find where you are. We only use basically information from the modem of the radio inside, let's say, your scanner, inside your phone, etc., and use that for location. So I know nothing about the user. So really the ethical decisions are moved to somebody else. And there's issues with location. I'm not, location, it is what it is, and you have to think very carefully how you deploy it and what you do with it when you're dealing with people. But Deeyook is about tracking assets, okay? So basically what we're doing, if you're looking to the ethical sense, really protects people, because what Deeyook will enable really is a supply chain where at any stage of the supply chain you know where the goods are. You know which goods are which, so you limit theft, you limit counterfeit. A lot of things you can't really do today when you don't know where things are all the time. So Deeyook, by touchless tracking, enables you to know where your goods are at all time. And that's why we chose the supply chain as our first vertical. Remember, we supply location. Our business model is location as a service. Okay, so we are providers of a service of giving you, based on a subscription, location of your assets. We could have gone to healthcare. Where's the hospital bed? Where's the MRI? Where's the different, hospital assets? But the supply chain is such a huge challenge, and it's so open to innovation and to improving visibility that's where we're going.
So your technology, you said you're touchless. What does that mean?
It means that today it's not touchless. How do people know in the supply chain today? Where are you? Where are things? Everybody has scanners, and everything has barcodes, and everybody's continuously scanning. So it's not touchless. Your level of visibility is dependent on how many gatekeepers you put in. Okay, so if you say, I'll scan it when it enters the warehouse, I'll scan it when it leaves the warehouse, I'll scan it on Tuesdays, I'll scan it on Thursday afternoons. Okay, those are your points of contact.
And those are
that
called
is
touch.
tracking.
That's called touch?
That's touching.
Okay.
With Deeyook, you put a tag on day one or on minute one, and
The whole
that's
time,
it.
continuous.
Continuous tracking. You will look for the information whenever you need it, but it's continuous, real-time location. There's a term, real-time location services.
Right.
The only real, accurate term there is the word services. Because the location is not precise enough,
right?
And it's never real time. It's
right.
based on scanning. So what is this RTLS? It shows you, everybody knows certain.
It's called marketing, buddy.
It's very good marketing, right? But services is the right thing.
Persuasion is
exactly.
in vocabulary.
Deeyook is real time, okay,
right.
At any given time, location. And by the way, we don't do the services. We go to the services company to do the services. We do the real time location. So Deeyook is RTL.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's get a little more into your technology then when I talk about your team. So let's say you're at a warehouse. I'm just thinking IKEA for a second, right? And you got, I know, I'm using this example because I know many people can relate to this. They got pallets and it's stacked. Each one would have its own tag that you know where it is in real time. How do you know? It's one thing to know so precise that you know where this thing is in the building, in a bird's eye view, two-dimensional. But it's things stacked. Would you be able to know this one's on top of this one, on top of this one, on top of this one, and to what accuracy and how many centimeters you'll be able to know in depth? And is your accuracy better when it comes to a plane as opposed to, let's say, a vertical or stacking? And yeah, sorry.
All good questions. And there are about 5 of them now, so let's see how good my memory was.
There are more I want to ask, but I stopped.
So we'll start with this. Probably the most important feature of the technology is that you don't deploy hardware. You don't deploy infrastructure, okay? There is Wi-Fi already there. You go into IKEA, there's Wi-Fi in IKEA. There's the IKEA Wi-Fi. So you don't need to deploy a new infrastructure to use Deeyook. There are 8+ billion access points out there, okay? Think about that number.
Right.
There are more access points in the world than people. And it's even more extreme considering large parts of the world don't have Wi-Fi.
Right.
But in the parts of the world where you have Wi-Fi, there's more than 8 billion access points. Okay, so take that number of access points, and that's what we use in order to get the locations. Because we're a physical layer technology, okay, that is based on a concept in physics called interferometry. Okay, interferometry is measuring the phase delay between 2 rays of coherent light, or between 2 coherent rays of light. Okay, that's interferometry. We measure that phase delay and translate that into angles, which we use to triangulate and get a position. Okay? So now we go into IKEA. We use their existing infrastructure, right, to get an XY. Now, what's the nice thing about coherent rays of light? If they're positioned, the antennas of the access point are positioned like this, I get an XY. But if they're positioned like this, I get a YZ. Okay, and
so that's how you're able to do the plane in the 3D
right.
graphic.
So the technology in itself is 2D.
Got it.
But we do two measurements,
So
combine
3D.
them, and we get 3D. What's even nicer that, because Wi-Fi is based on the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz, and the designer of the access points like to have separation between the antennas. Every, let's say, a Cisco access point, which is 50% of the enterprise market, has one set of antennas like this, one set of antennas like this. So inherently, by the way those 8 billion access points are spread worldwide, I can give you XY, I can give you YZ, I do the combination, I can tell you fourth pallet on the right, etc. That. How accurately? We're dealing with angles. Now, what do you think about when you're angles? If you're looking into the horizon, and it's an angle, and you move 5 meters to the side, the horizon is still in the same place. What that means is your accuracy will be dependent on your distance from the transmitter, okay? So if you have an access point 50 meters from you, you'll be able to do this accurate location, okay? 50 centimeters, 60 centimeters, 80 centimeters. But if your access points are 20 meters from you, 60 feet from you, okay, you can do 10 centimeters. Okay, you bring them in closer, you become more accurate. But in general, always under 1 meter. So always within the human, you're standing, okay, going back to your IKEA issue, you're always standing in front of the right pallet in the right order, and you know you want the third one from the top.
So you develop all this technology. It's fascinating. How do you assemble the right team or the right engineers in order to help you with such precision?
It's really piece by piece, you know. It's finding the right people. It's getting the right people committed. It's learning slowly what's your most important path and investing in that path. Mm-hmm. Now, we started by developing a few patents, and this was when Eran and myself were looking for funding. By the way, everything we're doing is supported by intellectual property. We have 10 granted US patents, another 9 US patents in application. So it is unique IP here, what people are working on. And then you start looking for the right person. Now, I think the advantage of being in the business for 25 years is that you know that there is no typecast of what the right person is. Okay, so the company today, 30 people, 20 engineers. Half of our engineers are women. On a personal note, we like hiring female engineers. We think they bring perspectives, and I don't think you can do generalizations of female engineers, but the female engineers.
Well, I think you should generalize because, okay, so it's very unusual that 50%.
It is unusual.
It's actually extremely rare. I would say it's beyond unusual. Was that a pursuit? Like, did you set like a quota, or were you saying there's something about a female engineer that's at least specifically for your technology that you find that might have advantages over male engineers? So we're going to just give an advantage, or we're going to pursue or open jobs maybe more to these to women engineers. I'm just curious, was there a conscious decision, or did it happen naturally? Because like my company, like we're marketing companies, but like we're overwhelmingly women, over 80%. But that just happened naturally. There wasn't any intent or anything. But marketing does skew women, does skew female. So my question is, engineering skews strongly male. Was it intentional, or did it just kind of naturally happen with the kind of characteristics that you're looking for in an engineer?
I think it naturally happened. I can't say there was no quota, and there was no preferential treatment. But on the other hand, there was no counter bias. Okay, there wasn't a bias that said I want to bring my friend from the but from the army, or somebody that looks like me, or by definition, when you're 25-year employees, most of the employees don't look like you.
Right.
Okay, most of the employees don't behave like you. So you're treating the whole group, okay, the whole group, there's no bias, let's look for the best person there. Now we're, as I said, a deep tech company, so our female engineers, we have PhDs You know, we have PhDs in physics, we have PhDs in double E, we have PhDs in mathematics. So there's PhDs here. There's a lot of physicists here. It just happens. By the way, when you reach a certain stage, I think it's easier for other women engineers to join when they see that there's a big group of women engineers. So it's very interesting to look at that point.
Science,
2 years ago, when you said, okay, you were 15 people and there were 6 females, I think that's the interesting point. Today, when we're 30 and of the engineering group, half are women, it's less interesting because it's obvious.
Right.
And it's totally, it's just there. It's part of how the company grows. We recruit people, etc. But there is no bias. It changes over time as well, etc. We're trying to create continuity. We're trying to get people to stay longer terms, which is something that in this industry people like moving around. I don't like that.
I don't either.
It takes me a long time to teach people
to train
and to get value. So for them to say, I want to move on, and people move on usually only for personal. Let's put this one. People move on for personal reasons.
When you say personal, you mean
personal,
money?
I mean the family is moving to a different area of the country,
right,
etc. There's nothing I can do, and I accept that. If they move on because they don't find the work interesting, then we failed.
Right.
That's what I put a big red circle around that, and let's drill down into the bottom of that and find out what happened and avoid that happening again.
This thing is interesting, actually, that's unique to Israeli tech, is I say there's one of the advantages. There's some advantages of Israel being so geographically small.
That's true.
And one of them is the fact that if they get up and move, they can still commute.
Right,
right. I was like, when it's 80% of the workforce within like an hour drive, something like that in general.
Now, specifically, we're situated here near Hashalom train station, and it's not by chance. It's on purpose.
Right.
Okay, we've said our office will always be close to a train station.
Correct. Right.
Okay, and that means that we have employees coming from all the way north of Haifa, okay, which is 110 kilometers from here where the employee is, Kiryat Ata, all the way south to Rehovot and to Jerusalem. Yet still, with all the talk of hybrid work and commute, etc., the closer your workforce is to the office, the easier it is to bring everybody to the office.
Right.
People don't like to do a 2-hour commute, and I understand why. I don't like to do a 32-minute commute sometimes, and I live 6 kilometers from here, so it should be a 10-minute commute. But traffic is traffic.
Right. Okay, so just one last question about your team, and then you're talking about how you got here, and we want to go back because you do have a fascinating career that really exemplifies the Israeli tech ecosystem. You hinted or touched on that there are some advantages of a female engineer, but you didn't say what they were. Can you tell me what in your perspective and experience, what do you think on average in general a female engineer can bring to the table more than, let's say, a male engineer?
More listening, better teamwork. And I think the bigger the problem, the more teamwork you need. You're not going to solve the very difficult issues we're solving by some hotshot. Okay, it's not a question of writing the software as fast as you can or even as elegant as you can. It's developing the right algorithms. It's a lot of interaction between different algorithm teams. And all this needs a lot of listening, a lot of cooperation, a lot of working together.
That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
Which tied again to your question: why are people in the office?
Right.
Because you can't work together and cooperate, etc.
Right.
Or I haven't found out.
Right.
I don't want to be.
Yeah. No.
Unequivocally can't. But I haven't found out a way to do it if you're not together working on it.
Yeah, we talked about this off camera. That you and I, because I mentioned it was great to see so many people here working so early. And I was like radically anti-remote, and then Corona happened, and then I was forced to do remote. And of course, we're digital marketing, so everyone can work remotely. And then I became an advocate of it. And I totally understand though, like when you need to be what you're doing, the deep tech that you're doing. It's not what we're doing by any means. You need people to come and collaborate and be able to do that. And so that's actually very it's very special that you have that unique sense of collaboration, making sure that you're near a train and all that. So I think that's terrific. It's opened a lot of other opportunities. Hopefully other people will hear from what you're doing here and your experience, and particularly some of the advantages of hiring female engineers, that they may be able to see that too and may help their technology also that needs a lot of collaboration. So you've half engineers are women. That's terrific. But I also notice you have a lot of people from the former Soviet Union. So is there something also unique about kind of just your culture or what you're looking to do in a team that happens to attract many people from the former Soviet Union?
Well, I don't. We're looking for a lot of hard core physics and math.
Right. Okay.
And when you're looking for that group, you find a lot of ex-Soviet Union emigres, children of where the emphasis in their education was on on the sciences, etc. So I think it's interesting. I've never checked it out, but I think in society, if you look across the board, you'll see a higher percentage when you're looking into physics graduates, math graduates, etc. It came with the professions that the Jews of Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, etc. had when they came here. A funny story. Previous company, 2006. My previous company's name was Extracom, and it was I received an investment from the National Investment Fund of Kazakhstan. Okay, and I went to Kazakhstan a few times. They were my investors, etc. I did board meetings there, etc. And one day they took us to a center like Herzliya here, high-tech center, and they did really a question, how do we develop a high-tech sector in Kazakhstan? And basically you're saying, okay, you need funding. You can do that through government funding, etc. You need good ideas and the people to push them, and you need engineers. And then a Kazakh reporter put his hand up and said, how are we going to have engineers if they all went to Israel? You see? So that's the issue in Kazakhstan. In Israel, I'm not saying anything new. That the importance of the post-Soviet immigration to Israel in the development of the high-tech sector, and you definitely can see it in Deeyook. So probably a third of the people in Deeyook have some type of relationship to that immigration. It could be children of,
right.
But still, when you look, okay, but why did you do 5 points math and 5-point physics and 5-point computer science and, in your matriculation exams, because my parents insisted.
Do you think, I don't know if the right person asked, but do you think that the cultures you're seeing them and their children push much more into math and science, which is awesome? Do you think that culturally maybe it has now expanded to people not from the FSU that are now more likely to go in science and math because there's such an influx of people from the former Soviet Union?
Well, I think...
Or vice versa, because something I found fascinating, I was learning about Israeli demographics trends, and people thought that, Israel's demography was going to collapse, which the rest of the Western world is. Israel's not, thank God. And one of those reasons that they said was because 20% of the country were from the former Soviet Union, and they had 0 to 1 kids. And they would just assume that their children also culturally would. But it turns out they became very Israeli, and their kids had 3 to 4 kids, kids. So I found it fascinating that kind of the melting pot, and that the culture took, integrated probably some of the best parts of the former Soviet Union and gave them in return some of the best part of Israeli culture, which is family, purpose, meaning, etc. On the other hand, so I'm wondering the positive things from the former Soviet Union was, let's say, at least education-wise and career-wise, a strong focus on science, mathematics, space, etc. Is that something that we're seeing? Do you think the Israeli ecosystem is not from the former Soviet Union? Are they picking that up, do you think, from those that are from the former Soviet Union?
I think there is a much higher emphasis on the study of science today. Let's say if I compare it to 25 years ago, but that's a result of the success of the high-tech industry. Right. So today, that if you study math and you study computer science and you study physics, there's a clear career path for you and a clear career path for you in Israel. The first generation Soviet immigration helped establish this, but I think today when people are looking, okay, what's my way, to make a good living? What's my way to make an impact, etc., they're seeing an existing industry that's, thousands and thousands of companies strong. And I'm taking a perspective of looking back 25 years. It wasn't the same thing 25 years ago.
So the scientists,
I
and
think that's what they see.
So the scientists and the mathematicians that came overwhelmingly from the former Soviet Union played a major part in the Israeli tech culture, and through that, now the people that go through that culture from the former Soviet Union or not are now more likely to do science and math. So it's one,
Exactly. It's
2 degrees of separation.
Exactly.
That's very fascinating. So let's go back to there's a lot of people know each other, and we were talking about the influence the former Soviet Union and people have on each other in the ecosystem that makes Israel unique. Right. You're talking a lot about you talked earlier about your former co-founder, your current co-founder, and you co-founded another company together. How did your career come about? And kind of what were the different players that brought you to where you are now? Because you do have a very fascinating but also stereotypical Israeli tech career. Is that you founded a few companies, how you're able to work with people in the ecosystem, the networking. Maybe you can take me back to kind of maybe how you found your co-founder, how you got into the Israeli tech, and that brought you and Deeyook to where it is now.
Okay, so Eran Shpak, my co-founder, I think comes from the standard. He was 15 years in military intelligence. He won the Israel Security Award back in the 80s.
What does that mean?
Every year the state gives people that contributed uniquely to the security of Israel, usually through technology projects, award. And he did a specific project somewhere in the 80s that the state found
What did he
unique.
do? I was worth a shot.
Come on. You think he told me? I don't think he tells himself what he did. It's all hot. Even 40 years ago, you don't get away from from this type of secrecy. But he basically, after that, he left the army in the early 90s. He was a part of one startup that was sold to Lucent in 99, and at that stage, we're introduced together, and we start working together.
How are you introduced?
Okay, my path is different. So I did about a 10-year military service. After that, went and did a couple of graduate degrees in the States, in basically in international law, in law and international economic law, and totally unrelated. Unrelated.
Wait, what attracted you to that?
Unrelated. I was always, interested in other places and other countries, etc. By the way, that's a very good path for high tech as well. Remember, Israel, very small market. We need to sell in Japan, and we need to sell in China, and we need to sell in the US, and we need to sell in the EU. By definition, one of the things you need to do when you are a part of Israeli high tech is understand other societies, understand how to interact with them, understand how to sell with them. And to sell in Japan is not the same as selling in the US, and not the same as selling in Germany or in Sweden. So it's another set of attributes, talents that is needed really to develop a company. Okay, but that I know, I felt it was the right thing, but I did not know that's what I'm doing. I was recruited back in the States to interestingly enough, back to Israel to work in a government agency. I was, one of the early employees of what is today known as the Israel Competition Authority. At that stage, it was called the Israel Antitrust Authority. And when I joined, I was employee number 10. When I left, we had 90 employees in a government authority. We basically, my boss then, Dudi Tadmor, which today has a big law firm right at the building here behind us. He really built up the agency. And what I discovered, that's what I liked. Okay, I liked building up things. Okay, the material itself. Antitrust law. I didn't find that really exciting.
I like how you build
but building that authority, that was what I liked. So when I was saying, okay, I treated my stint at government as miluim, as reserves, as my contribution to society. And I'm saying, okay, I'm now going to the private sector, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I like? I like that, building something from the ground up. And that's how I came to startups. And since we had a lot of mutual connections, Eran and myself, one of those mutual connection introduced us, and from there it's a 25-year relationship.
Amazing. And so then, how do you guys find your last company, the Extracom? Like, what was the solution around there? How did you guys come together and decide, like, hey, let's do something together? Were you both working on a similar technology and have a passion for it, or did your personalities kind of like hit it off? And then you're like, hey, let's start a startup together. And then you went to explore. How did that come about?
Okay, so basically we decided we're working together and we're looking for a problem that as a team we can bring a unique technology to solve. So the way we work together is basically, Eran's obviously, he's the technologist. And I, at that stage, operate as the CPO. Okay, so I'm the chief product officer. And basically, there's a problem. Does this product solve this problem? Does this technology support or enable this product? Okay, and we go kind of that triangle, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, until we lock into something that we believe we can raise money for, develop, and really take it to market. In the case of Deeyook, we were thinking of the field of location, and we did a few iterations personally going that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we discounted technologies and we discounted the possibilities of doing certain things until we came to something that we said, no, this can work. Okay,
Right.
this can work. And this can work really has Eran saying the technology can be developed and me saying this product can be sold. Okay, that's the combination. When you have that, this product can be sold, that technology can be developed, we have that deep tech company
Right.
that needs to be developed.
Right. So your last company that you guys, what happened there? How did you develop it? And then,
You're talking about Extracom.
yeah. When you guys met,
Right.
what fascinates me is that you've co-founded 2 companies together, right? So
And worked on a third and a fourth, yeah.
yeah. So like, what is it? When did you like decide like, okay, it's time to move on? Before you moved on from Extracom, did you say let's do something new as we go and move on? Kind of like, what is that like? Did you, since your career has been more established than when you were Extracom, would you guys been able to bring in new players together to help be the first employees? If you can kind of walk us through that.
Well, I think it's trying to identify what are the technological trends. Eran's first company was building a chip for 802.11. 802.11, when they added the B, became what we know as Wi-Fi. So when you're looking into wireless technology, etc., it's on the path of developing wireless technology. I can note, without breaking any secrets, that Eran for 15 years in the military did wireless technology as well. The military is very big for obvious reasons on wireless technology. So when we came and looked at the market, we said, okay, what's missing in terms of how do you take Wi-Fi, think Wi-Fi in the year 2002 and Wi-Fi in the year 2023, and see that big gap between ever-present technology that everybody connect to something that was really in its beginnings then, and we with Extracom we found that there's an ability to create a company and a technology that solves some of the unique problems of Wi-Fi.
Extracom, tell us about how you first raised money. I'm curious, how did that go, and what did that partnership kind of entail? And I'm also curious because you've co-founded more than one company with the same man. What did that do for your relationship, kind of moving forward?
Well, in terms of Eran, Shpak, and myself, I'm always the person that raises the money.
Okay.
So it's kind of like my problem. By the way, if you're looking for how do you stay partners with somebody for 25 years,
yeah,
one of my pieces of advice would be always have clear separation between who's responsible for what.
Is this marriage advice?
Okay,
or?
this is partner advice. Okay, this is partner advice. But it has helped, and when I've seen partners clash, it's because who's responsible, who's supposed to do
right.
what. In our case, we always know who's responsible for what, and that's there in the fundraising as well. General advice to listeners would be that when you're raising money, no is just a no.
Right.
And I'm sure everybody says that, but it has to be truly hammered in to anybody who's thinking of ever opening a startup, etc. No is just a no. In Extracom, let's say in my seed round, we closed the round with 3 offers within 3 weeks. Okay? Okay? My A round, I received over 120 negative results. That means 120 different VCs I pitched to before somebody said yes. The only important thing is the one company that said yes. There was a B round and a C round and a D round after that. That's not the issue. But I'm kind of creating that differentiation between the A round, the seed round, and the A round. 3 presentations, the seed round, all offers. A round, over 125 presentation, 1 offer.
Right.
It doesn't really matter as long as you have that one offer. So no is only no. What's important is you get the yes and you move on. In the C round, and in the B round, excuse me, in Extracom, we got an investment from Motorola Venture Capital. Motorola in 2005-06 was what Apple is today. You know, it was the phone everybody was using, it, the biggest communication company in the world, etc. And the number 2 guy in the company that was heading all corp dev and CSO, CTO was Richard Nottenberg. Had dinner with him twice in Tel Aviv. That's the extent of how we initially met.
Wait, did
but
you,
we kept
did you
in
have
touch.
exclusive dinner, or was it like a bigger dinner?
No,
How did you
big
meet?
other founders in the
That's what I
company.
thought,
But
yeah.
you get to talk to people and you start developing a relationship.
Right.
And in the end, raising funds is about relationships and about knowing people. And when we started Deeyook, our seed investor, our first investor, is a group of U.S. angels led by Richard Nottenberger, which we approached. I approached specifically because I've known him since 2005-06. So it's all about building relationships, getting your previous investors, developing a good relationship with them, and taking them to your next company.
And so, wait, how did you do that? And when you were building these relationships, right? How much were you thinking in mind, like, okay, I'm raising the money because we need this for our company and our technology? How much of that, I wonder, is it remotely conscious or is it subconscious that what I'm doing here is I'm actually building a relationship with somebody, and there'll be an opportunity for us to work together and help each other and make a greater impact for more people in the future? Is that part of your perspective as you go and you build relationships with different people, whether different people you co-founded, your first employees, your partners, your investors?
Yeah, I would like to say it is, but it's not.
Right. Do you think it's a subconscious aspect or not really?
It just happens. It happens in terms of the relation. I think the people that are really good at this, it is a consideration they take into account. I think in our case, and Hans and myself, it's just a result of things that naturally happened. It's not a self-conscious effort to go there and to do that.
Build that relationship.
But if I needed to give a piece of advice, I would say think about that. And it goes both ways. Everything that comes around goes around, and every statement you've heard or said yourself is true in the end. And even the global market, for specific markets, they're small. So today, when we're doing location that's based on Wi-Fi networks, I'm meeting people that I worked with on different companies 20 years ago, totally unrelated. We were just 2 weeks ago at the biggest silicon provider for Wi-Fi in the world, to be remained unnamed. And I met, the senior person of engineering, and I met him 23 years ago in a different company. And we kind of tied. So it's a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence in the essence that we're working in a similar field for a quarter of a century. And in the end, you tend to cross paths in these fields.
Okay.
So you cross paths in Israel because it's a small market.
Right.
And globally because, it's the technology sector. It's not everybody. It's the technology sector, and it's the people working on specific technologies, etc.
So how did you bring that into, those relationships you built, and then how does that go? Also with your investor, I understand, you found something, you have a good vibe with a co-founder. Mm-hmm. How much was your investor just money? How much was it a partnership, and that you were then able to bring them over to Deeyook?
I think that with Richard, we're talking specifically of Richard Nottenberg, which is the chairman of Deeyook, I think it's much more than money, it's a relationship. And it's much more than money, it's strategic advice, and it's the board here really operates as, as an active management of the company. So while he's not an executive chairman per se, because he's not, he's still very active and involved in everything we do, and I think that relationship allows us to grow it further, raise more money, etc. Look, I don't think it's that common that you raise from angels $15 million.
Correct.
Which is what we raised. Okay, so we've raised $15 million from angels. We haven't yet gone to a professional round, and we'll go to a professional round, post our launch of a product in 2024. So it's that combination of relationship, understanding of the market, etc., that allows us to do that.
So quarter two, we're going to see your product. So if we want to stay up to date with what you're doing, Gideon and Deeyook in particular, what's the best way for us to kind of stay up with your technology and what you're up to?
Well, the easiest is deeyook.com, and we'll have all the information there, and hopefully we'll keep it up to date. We won't, lose it as we're running like crazy to fulfill everybody's desire to deploy this.
Awesome. So if anyone wants to stay up to date with you or what you're doing, we can also, I'm sure, follow you on socials. We'll make sure we'll put that down in the description. And we can give Deeyook a follow and also Israel Tech a follow. I really love this conversation. My favorite part actually was learning how you're able to bring the culture and people together, and the unique both former Soviet Union employees and the half female engineers in your team. I think that's really great. We have a lot to learn here. So I'm really grateful for you sharing your experience and your expertise, and thank you for joining us on Israel Tech.
Thank you, and it was a real pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Gideon.